Hey guys, this is a market update. I want to look at Bitcoin and how it is extremely correlated to the stock market right now, specifically the NASDAQ index. There are reasons for this, which I'm going to go through in this video. This is a really important correlation that is seemingly coming about. Bitcoin really isn't that correlated over its past, but is seemingly more correlated now. And it kind of makes sense. But there are some other kind of correlations that really don't make sense as well. So I'm going to try and explain all of these in this video. Just look at the Bitcoin price and see some levels. We're actually at a really key level right now that we need to hold if we are to think that Bitcoin is going to move forward in Q1 this year. Let's get right into the video and look at the Bitcoin price, technical analysis, and then I'm going to look at the NASDAQ and see how Bitcoin is correlated to this right now. And actually why I think the NASDAQ may continue to sell off, but Bitcoin doesn't have to, even though it has very significantly already. First thing I want to say about this chart is that this is a really stinky chart, okay? This is just, there's not much positive to say about this. We are technically, and I use the word technically in a kind of professional sense, if you just look at the chart technically, as in technical analysis, it is actually absolutely a downtrend. And I just want to kind of go over this. So a downtrend is signified by lower lows and lower highs. And obviously this is very, very apparent, right? Each time we get a high and a low, it is lower than before. That was a high. This is the low. And what we've done after a little, a kind of relief rally this week, you know, and people were saying, okay, right, this is the turn. But actually from a technical perspective, we have only printed a lower high. And this is not good. So things have to change. One of the things that I can highlight here is that 40,000 is obviously an extremely key support. Now, the silver cloud to the silver lining to this cloud is that what it looks like we're doing is essentially ranging here and possibly testing out levels. We may look to kind of test this level again. We actually tested 39 and we may test 40, which may signify a kind of bottoming out, a consolidation before a leg up. So that is the silver lining to this cloud, is that if you just look at this from a technical perspective, this is an absolute dog, okay? It's just moving down, lower lows, lower highs. We've printed another lower high here. And what we're seeing is a correlation to the NASDAQ. So I want to talk about that because that's really important. The Bitcoin and the NASDAQ seem to be correlated now, but in their history, they really aren't that correlated. Bitcoin is seen as an uncorrelated asset. So the silver cloud here is that if we bottom out and consolidate here, that could be a consolidation before trying to test these levels, as you can see on the chart that I've put here. If you want to know how I trade and put these levels on, I would suggest my course. I'm actually adding 25 new videos and a ton of new trading videos as well. Those videos will be going live on the 22nd of January. Existing course members will get those free of charge. The price goes up when they're added. I'm probably going to put the price up in February when they're added, just to give everyone a week. If you want to check that out, I'll leave the link in the description. But we can see that on the technicals. Coming to the NASDAQ, right, what we can see is that the NASDAQ has sold off this week as well. In the past few weeks, really this year, quite heavily. Okay, so the NASDAQ has been a really, underperformer, and it's down on the year. You can see that right here. But just look at the history, right? This is a ridiculous move. I think the NASDAQ has pretty much doubled actually since the Federal Reserve started printing money. So obviously it's performed very well. So you can't really, get crazy about like a couple of % move to the downside. I've put the 200-day moving average on here because what you can see essentially is that the NASDAQ itself is actually just printing a higher low. So the NASDAQ, if you just zoom out, is still in an uptrend. Obviously, people are thinking the past is the past. What is the future is higher interest rates and the Fed taking away their monetary stimulus. That's why everyone is trying to rebalance right now. And obviously, the really key level for me is if this 200 MA is broken, then obviously we could see some real capitulation. I don't believe capitulation has happened yet in the NASDAQ. It's actually been a fairly orderly sell-off, to be honest. Capitulation is real tough. That's when we start breaking through this 200-day, and it is possible. So these are things I'm looking for in 2022. I think 2022 is nothing like last year. There will be stocks that win, there will be cryptos that win, but they will be specifically very specific reasons for that. It's not just going to be an up-only market this year, in my opinion, because of interest rates going up, monetary stimulus being withdrawn or at least slowing down. So What I want to talk about is earnings multiples. So earnings multiples, really, we can think of them as, let's say we have a company, right? And it earns X amount, X billion. Okay, an earnings multiple is when you pay for the stock and you pay a multiple of its current earnings. So typically you'll pay around 20 times the current earnings for a stock. So if a stock makes $1 billion in earnings in the year, you'll pay 20 times that, the earnings per share, right? So this is a typical price to earnings ratio is 20x. In the S&P, NASDAQ maybe a bit higher. Here's the problem, and I'm going to show you this on the NASDAQ. And so obviously the NASDAQ is tech stocks, right? So these are high multiple anyway, right? So you're paying a lot more for their current earnings because you expect their earnings to grow into the multiple that you're paying. Here is the price to earnings multiple for McDonald's. You can see McDonald's here, and you can see the price to earnings multiple over time. Back in 2008, people buying McDonald's stock bought the stock at a multiple of 10x. People paid 10 times McDonald's current earnings for the stock. Now in 2022, people are paying 26.9 times the current earnings for the same company. 26.9. 26.9. Call it 27. Okay. So the multiple has gone up almost 3x. Now, obviously, they make more money, but the multiple is the important, right? It doesn't matter how much money they're making. You're still paying way more for their current earnings than before. This is why people are really kind of scared about what's happening now, because you can see that the price to earnings ratio for McDonald's just keeps going up and up and up, right? So people, even though they're earning more, people are paying considerably more for each share. Look at the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ back in 2018, so not long ago, people paid 20 times, on average, this is the NASDAQ 100 index. People used to pay 20 times current earnings for their stock. Now in 2021, people are paying 40 times the current earnings. People are paying twice as much for the same earnings as they were a few years back. This is why traders are worried, really, about what's going to happen to the NASDAQ. Because the NASDAQ is doubly overpriced as to what it was before. Those companies are bigger, they may make more money, but people are paying comparatively twice as much for it. This is why everyone in 2022 is getting really, really worried about, interest rates going up, monetary stimulus going, and then you're left with many stocks in your portfolio that you overpaid for by 100%. You've overpaid for everything. Now what do? You have investors, you have clients giving you money saying, why did you pay double for this stock? Interest rates are going up. There's no more monetary stimulus. You need to rebalance. Why this is important is because when such a massive rebalancing happens, everything goes with it. And Bitcoin is an extremely volatile asset, which is the worry. So what you can see definitely is obviously during this sell-off right here, a lot of risk asset prices are correlated, and Bitcoin too. So that's some of the things I'm thinking about with this year. I think there are many different situations where a lot of cryptos do extremely well, specifically because of adoption and usage. And that's going to be the thing that saves them outside of just this rebalancing. It's yet to be seen whether the Fed can kind of make their interest rate hikes and their monetary stimulus taking away, if they can really give a soft landing, which is what everyone hopes. And that what you'll see actually is that the market doesn't go down, but it kind of consolidates for a while, doesn't go up, and then the earnings grow to take the multiple down. This is known as multiple compression, when essentially the price doesn't go down, it stays the same, but the earnings go up. And so that price to earnings ratio, the multiple, shrinks and compresses a bit. This would be the best option for the market. Everyone's got their fingers crossed that this soft landing will happen and it won't be a hard crash, which could obviously crash everything. So this is what I'm looking for. At the moment, this chart is just printing lower lows and lower highs. And really what we're waiting for is some sort of adoption event or something to kind of spur the price a little bit more, and give investors that reason to kind of go into Bitcoin and take that correlation back away between the NASDAQ and Bitcoin. So another thing here is, 70% of US crypto holders started investing in 2021. So this is kind of good news for me, because it means that so many people are coming in, right? The bad news obviously here is that how many investors came into crypto just because the price was going up, and now they're kind of in at all-time highs and maybe not in it for the long term. So this could be the reason, as the price is coming down, when those people are saying, I'm getting out. So maybe those people are starting to kind of flush through right now, and then really it's regulation and regulated investors coming in. Hopefully, we know that's happening, that will kind of push the price again. So there's so many things going on with not just the market, but the supply and demand curve for these cryptos as well. What I mean about specific bets that may do well, something like Near Protocol, I don't want to kind of single out Near to say it's good or bad, but what we can see here is that these are stories that may push individual names throughout the space. So, adoption events, money raises, spending money on incentives and adoption usually pushes specific cryptos up. So smart contracts, again, Web3, this is a big thing in 2022. Specific coins that really hit the mark and their business use case explodes, or they just get a bunch of cash to spend on incentives. This usually helps the price specifically, and this is going to be something that definitely changes the price for a specific crypto rather than just this macro stuff. So there are definite opportunities here, but there are obviously macro headwinds, including this multiple compression, as you can see, and really what the NASDAQ continues to do, whether it does actually just keep bouncing off this 200-day, which would be good, and maybe we'll see eventually that Bitcoin has some adoption event, either a stablecoin regulation, which I think is probably the big one, the big event. I think it's extremely good news for Bitcoin, not bad news. We have to have regulation if the big boys are going to come in and play, and that's what we need. So yeah, a few things, definitely a different year than last year. Last year up only. This year you have to be more specific. You have to be very specific with your research as well. So like I said, for my crypto course, if you want to check that out in the description, those videos are being published on the 22nd of January, I believe. 25 videos, a new NFT section, more trading videos, investing videos, and a bunch of requests that people had. My portfolio, trade alerts, all coming on that date, and then the price will be going up in February. I'll leave the link down there if you want to check it out now. I'm James with MoneyZG. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.